Welcome to Season 3 of the College Admission TV podcast. We explore the fast-changing space of AI, education, and the future of the workforce. In this episode, we're joined by President Tarek Sobh of Lawrence Technological University.
Well, good afternoon to our listeners out there. I want to thank you all for joining this important conversation about AI education and the future workforce. We're honored to welcome a distinguished leader from one of our nation's premier technological universities. Since its founding in 1932, Lawrence Technological University, known as LTU, has been in the forefront of engineering, design, business, and advanced technological education, located in Southfield, Michigan, with a motto, theory and practice. So this is very interesting to me. I am excited to have Dr. President Tarek Sobh, the 8th president of LTU, to join us today. And really enlighten us as far as where LTU is going in terms of AI. I do want to mention that Dr. Sobh has authored over 200 peer-reviewed publications. Anyone who is a researcher knows that getting that many articles done is not an easy feat. So congratulations, we're honored to have you. And has also authored 27 books. He holds advanced degrees from University of Pennsylvania as well. Dr. Sobh, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Well, let's start with the obvious question, as I ask all the guests. How do you perceive the impact of artificial intelligence on the future of the workforce in the coming years?
Incredibly transformative and amazingly disruptive, to sum it up in, I guess, 2 adjectives. The world is changing incredibly fast. I am a roboticist and a computer scientist by training, and I remember coming to the United States as a young engineer to pursue my graduate studies at the University of Pennsylvania as a teenager, actually. 30 plus years ago. The very first course that I studied at Penn was actually a course in artificial intelligence, believe it or not. In my very first semester, fall of 1988 at Penn. Of course, we've come a long way, baby, as they say. I mean, when you take a look at the curriculum of that course, primitives of computer vision, primitives of planning, primitives of natural language processing, to where we are now, more than 3 decades later, the progress simply has been stunning. I like sometimes to think, if there is such a thing as a futurist, and in my world as a roboticist, as a computer scientist, some things are just going to disappear from our lexicon. The concept of manual labor is probably going out of business within the next 2 to 3 decades. The concept of limited cognition type jobs, even things like accounting, basic accounting, even things like reading of x-rays and MRIs and CAT scans, and being a radiologist as a physician specialization. These types of jobs, whether the manual ones or whether the limited cognition reasoning requirement type of jobs, are simply going to vanish because of artificial intelligence and the models being utilized now in generative and genetic AI. So it's going to be a very different type of world. Should that really discourage us or worry us? Or not really. I mean, AI is a new calculator
Exactly.
in many ways, and the ones who are going to be able to be more efficient and skilled at its application and usage, let alone designing new models within it, are the ones who are going to be able to win in this new economy. It's probably maybe a long answer to your question, but the way I do see things is really very conducive to the proposition that life is going to be very different because of AI. The type of jobs that would be out there are going to be different. The type of skill sets will be different. And as I always say, we are training from an educational point of view, our students for job titles that probably do not even exist yet. Actually, we are training them definitely for job titles that don't exist. And unless that training is very accepting and infused and copes with the changes in finance and in accounting and the way we do business and technology and arts and sciences involving artificial intelligence integration, then that education is not going to be worth much going forward. So.
Well, that's a perfect segue for the next question I have. What do we need to do to equip and educate students for careers that may not exist, or they might have a different look to them due to AI disruption? So how are you educating students as a result of that?
I think we probably have to be accepting of a couple of foundational propositions in education. One of them is there will be continuous need for lifelong learning for everyone. The whole idea of somebody going to school for a fixed duration of time, whether that duration is 1 year or 2 years or 4 years for a bachelor's degree or more for an advanced degree, and then assuming that that's enough for that person, he or she, to be productive and impactful and is able to solve problems of significant intellectual merit and broader impact to help humanity for a very long time after that period, after graduation. That is a concept that's gone. The pace of change is so dramatic that one needs to be able to lifelong learn, and educational institutions like ours should not only dispense knowledge, but also make sure that it is preparing students for that eventuality, being able to learn on their own, going forward. 70-80% of the applications we teach in higher education are going to be obsolete a few years after graduation. What's not going to be obsolete are the foundations, right? I mean, basic math skills, basic scientific skills, basic analytical, logical reasoning, integration type skills, even professional skills, what people used to call in the old days soft skills, presentation, project management, leadership, working in a team, etc. The foundational skills are never going to go away, and they are very important to dispense to people who are within their teenage years and right thereafter, impressing upon these people the need to lifelong learn after graduation with the most recent advances that are happening in all the disciplines, and being cognizant and accepting of the fact that educational models that used to exist in the last century and the beginning couple of decades in this century are going to be very different. I mean, who knows whether 30, 40 years from now or 50 or less or more, there will be degrees as the way we perceive them now. It might be a collection of short-term duration type modules or workshops or boot camps or skills or degrees, but packaged differently, that reacts to the market and reacts to changes in technology very, very fast, that people acquire and study all the time. Who knows? Maybe there will be no need or limited need for human instructors, right? You're seeing that right now yourself. You're seeing courses being taught by Actually very realistic and very well defined and very well articulated AI type boats, right? And they are actually doing not a bad job at all. I mean, they need to be programmed, obviously, and that's where the design piece and so on comes in from a profession point of view. But it is different. So educational institution like ours should realize that every business is a tech business. Every
Mhm.
major is a tech major. If you and actually a university like Lawrence Technological University is probably the epitome of this on so many different levels. You mentioned we are one of very few technological universities. As a matter of fact, um, we are one of only 13 universities in the US that are technological, meaning technologically focused by mission, vision, and name. Also, in our case, comprehensive doctoral, and in our case, also private. But
Mhm.
it suffices to say that out of the 6,000 or so institutions of higher education in the country, there are only 56 technological universities, period, less than 1%.
Interesting.
It is actually interesting, but also problematic, Dr. Nolan, because again, it's actually, the numbers are interesting. 56 technological universities, half of them are bachelor's level only, good schools, but the maximum credential is a bachelor's degree. And then half of them, 28, are doctoral, meaning they have bachelor's, master's, and PhD. And usually these have better facilities, obviously, because of the graduate research piece. And out of these 28, 15 are public and 13 are private. So we're one of these 13 that are private. But again, from a technology point of view and where AI is headed, again, with every business being a tech-based business, I would actually claim that with every major becoming a tech major, one needs to be maybe a little bit more deep thinking about this. So, I mean, if you're thinking about health sciences as an example, well, the future in health sciences is going to be for nurses and physicians and PAs and others who are very well trained in med tech and health tech, right? Medical technology,
Right.
health technology, whether they are these technologies, robotic surgery and autonomous robotic surgery using AI in a few years, or whether they are, as we discussed, automatic diagnosis and reading of MRIs and CAT scans and X-rays and EEGs and EKGs, or whether these technologies are in the areas of personalized medicine and how to produce scanning mechanisms that would be personalizing medications and planning for patients autonomously in the future using AI. And forget health sciences, even business, right? Uh, I mean, we talked about accounting and doing your own taxes and these kind of activities being really kind of activities that should never be done by a human going forward. But at the same time, when you take a look at business, the future is in areas like fintech and business tech, whether these areas are, again, data analytics and AI, primitives for doing business intelligence and reasoning over large business data sets to come up with decisions, or whether these are, algorithmic trading that is autonomous, for market needs, or whether it's in the areas of cybersecurity and for business enterprise information technology systems. But again, I mean, it's not enough to be a marketing quote unquote major or accounting or finance. You have to have these deep skills that are AI infused within business tech and fintech in order to be productive in the future. The list goes on. Our architecture, I mean, when you look at architecture, I mean, we all know, I mean, there is no need for manual labor. 20 years from now, buildings are going to be built by unmanned air vehicles and autonomous machinery and stuff. So things like robotic construction and usage of AI for building design and 3D printing of houses are all going to be primitives that requires deep knowledge in technology in order to be a good architect, architectural engineer, or civil engineer working with an architect. Same applies to design and transportation. So it's kind of truly fascinating how integrated everything is and how AI and technological usage that are appropriate, efficient, innovative, and in the future crucial of AI are within literally every single discipline. Um, I'm not even going to start talking about, digital design and digital music and digital integrated art and digital integrated marketing and so on and so forth.
Well, I could only imagine how Henry Ford, looking at this, how enthusiastic he would be about the next 100 years. I mean, the assembly line really, and the minimum wage and all the innovation, him and his son Edsel, who are the founders of your institutions, put into innovation. I have no doubt the way they thought they would embrace this new norm as far as increasing productivity. And you all have done a lot of work. So your your part of your CS and AI robotics lab, your intelligent robotics initiatives, your Center Police Accelerator program, your battery recycling is very interesting.
It's a very cool project, actually. Very cool project.
You're doing a lot of stuff around AI.
I worked on that project 20 something years ago, and now seeing it to fruition within the commercial domain for a national need. It's the same story with AI. I mean, talk about, again, look at the world around you. And, we talk about mining, right? Whether it's mining for precious metals or others. Well, the mine of the future is the city that we live in. That's the whole point, right? I mean, that is the whole concept. The whole concept is, with the cyclic economy, with reduce, reuse, and recycle, the mine of the future is the world that we live in, the city that we live in. One primitive thereof is, for example, having all of these batteries being autonomously, robotically disassembled and grouped into different metal components using a myriad of sensors and dexterous manipulators, whether these sensors are ultrasonic sensors, laser range-finders, stereo cameras, or all permutations thereof. Again, same type of sensors, same type of intelligent reasoning infused with artificial intelligence is used for autonomous driving. Same kind is used for guiding these disassembly lines. But again, I like your reference to Henry Ford, which is, of course, our genesis as an institution in Metro Detroit. But look at that time, right? At that time, designing and building a higher education institution to produce professionals who are productive from day one to help establish these assembly lines and manufacture, in this case, cars, was a novel concept. Higher education was not at that time supposed to be producing professionals who work from day one in industry. That was not it. At that time, the perception of higher education was very different. The perception was to produce intellectuals who can reason about different things. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, that remains to be a goal of higher education, deep intellect and producing thinkers who can solve problems of significant intellectual merit. But at the same time, the kind of economy we live in requires people to make things, to do things, to produce services, to produce goods, to produce structures and or constructs for people to live within or to apply. And at that time, designing an institution purely for that purpose, for producing, technologists and and technologically trained professionals to establish and grow this new industry was a very weird concept, believe it or not. But again, looking back 95 or 93 years later, having an institution or others or many being on the forefront of producing truly innovative and disruptive and transformative professionals who are utilizing, technology and everything, and are accepting of the fact that every business is a tech business, every industry is a tech industry, embracing that and being ready to work within, these types of industries from day one is still quasi-novel ideas. It might not be necessarily shared by the 6,000 institutions of higher learning, but we think it is shared by at least the less than 1% that are technologically focused.
So when we look at, I mean, it's hard not to compare our current situation to the Industrial Revolution, right? And it unraveled differently in the UK versus the US. I mean, US, obviously took about 100 years for Industrial Revolution to evolve. I remember reading, a book on Tolstoy, who was talking to the Russians and saying, in the 1800s, look, in America, they got free education. What are we doing in Russia when all the serfs and what was happening? But education was a huge part of uplifting American middle class and replacing those jobs. So 100 years from now, people are going to look back at us. They're going to see which nations actually potentially embrace this change, except it's going to happen in a much shorter amount of time. And the question is, what is student readiness and career readiness? Just going back to your last point, it's not just an academic pursuit,
Nope.
but how do you all kind of get students in different fields to be kind of plug and play? Do you have the foundation to be AI career ready?
So I think you hit it right on the nail when you mentioned career readiness and industry in particular. The whole concept of educational institutions, whether they are similar to Lawrence Tech or whether they are the Ivy Leagues or or different institutions, the whole idea of these institutions working in a vacuum, meaning dispensing knowledge without necessarily being very, very well integrated within the industry surrounding it, is the Modé, type concept. That's not going to be fashionable anymore. That's not going to work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Educational institutions, I think, that will be successful in the future are the ones that really embrace what we call here, at least in Lawrence Tech, the theory and practice model. It is not enough for education to be intellectually enriching, but the education we provide as higher education institutions, whether again through a degree or a module or a course or a workshop or what have you, that education has to be professional in nature. It probably has to be very interdisciplinary in nature, because you cannot solve any problem facing out in the 21st century unless it's a problem of higher impact, unless the problem includes so many different disciplines. The examples are endless. That education has to be very technologically focused, as we discussed, has to be research and scholarship infused, because if you really want to address problems that are significant, you have to address problems of significant intellectual merit. And it has to be industry immersed. And the key is industry immersion, to produce graduates who are able to function in this new economy that is innovative, that is professional, that's very interdisciplinary in nature, that's very infused by technology, including AI technology, and who knows, maybe quantum computing in a few years, maybe other, technologies, unless the universities are very well tied into industry, unless they work with tens, if not hundreds, of companies and or industries very closely on joint research projects, joint student projects, and to the level that many of these industries should be supporting the higher education institutions, so they would get the right kind of graduates that are ready to work for them. If that is not very well connected, higher education will not have any value proposition, because these graduates are going to be disconnected from industry needs. These graduates are not going to be able to function, be efficient, be productive from day one, day 10, or even for a couple of years. And they would need a whole level of different type of training by industry before they become productive, which industry and the economy cannot sustain anymore. I mean, that might have been the case 30 or 40 years ago, But as we talked, you are an entrepreneur yourself. Do you have the whereabouts and the resources to train all of your employees for a year or two or more or less to before they are productive? You would be out of business. Same is true of every industry. So the model has to be different. I see industry getting more involved in higher education. I see actually industry sponsoring lots of higher education projects and or training and or joint student projects and or R&D. And I see that the universities who are gonna make it are going to be the ones who embrace the theory and practice model. The universities that embrace professional education, that embrace industry immersion, interdisciplinarity, research infusion, and and obviously theory and practice.
Dr. Sobh, I was in my last podcast with the president of Dominion University. An interesting concept came up, which is every student at that university is required to have a paid internship while they're in college. So the marriage, so I think there are multiple concepts. One is what you mentioned, the nature of a bachelor's degree being 4 years versus specialty degrees, PhDs versus professional experience degrees, even at higher up. This fusion of higher education and industry, it just sounds like it is evolving. So there's really, you become, from what I'm hearing, employee or work ready while you're in college, not because right now it takes, I could tell you from experience, every time I've brought someone to my organization, minimum 6 months, sometimes as much as years. So how do you, this could allow us to narrow the gap, and education and industry have to change simultaneously, or education is going to be left behind. Is that what I'm hearing?
100%. This is probably tough to hear from a higher educational leader, but we've been hearing for the last several years about the talk about the value of higher education not being there anymore, right? Which is very distressing, by the way. Questioning the value of education, any kind of education, for many of us is borderline sacrilege, right? I mean, how can you question the value of higher education? But to be very honest, I mean, if the proposition in many or several or some, either colleges or certain majors within colleges, if the proposition is, I'm going to go there, spend 4 years in the prime time of my life or more, right? And, spend, upwards of $100,000. And at the end of that journey, I'm sitting in the basement of my parents for a couple of years without a job. And then that very first job is a $30,000 job, which is not enough to make me an independent human being who can contribute to society. Then the value of that higher education is not good. I mean, that's the reality. And when you look at a place like us and some other progressive universities, when it comes to professional, technologically focused, interdisciplinary education, my problem here, as an example, at Flores Technological University, is actually not to find jobs for our students. It's exactly what you said. It is actually to keep them till they graduate, because they get the full-time job offers right after the first internship or co-op, which is usually between their sophomore, junior year or junior, senior year. And that's how much the shortage is too, right? The shortage is obscene in science, technology, engineering, and math. The shortage is dramatic in graduates who are ready to work from day one, who have the requisite technological professional skills, to the extent that when kids are doing internship within the program, they acquire the skills, they fit within the culture of the company. The company doesn't want to risk waiting till they graduate. We discourage that, of course, but that tells you, right? It tells you that The shortage is significant. The kind of training needed is immersive training. Universities that operate, as you said, in a silo without significant interaction, significant joint programming, and or working with industries will either cease to exist, to be very honest, or will continue to produce graduates who do not fulfill the promise of what higher education is about.
So I noticed that one of your professors, I think Dr. Chen Jin Chung on RoboFest,
Mm,
he encouraged students from 4th to 12th grade to design and program autonomous robots. Very fascinating, which brings me to this. If you had to, obviously, we're in the business of human capital,
mhm.
right? And so, yes, we have higher education, but there's 12 years of education before that, right? So how should we be thinking about the first 12 years before even someone comes to a university?
Wonderful question. So we talked about closing the loop between industry and universities, right? I mean, a few minutes ago, and that how that relation should be much more integrated. So I'm going to personalize this next piece a little bit, right? I did mention to you, I think, prior to the podcast,
Mhm.
that I served as an engineering dean for actually 20 years, before progressing further in higher education. At some point, actually, I was the longest serving engineering dean in the country, in the US. That's not a good thing, by the way, from a career point of view, but that's a different discussion. But here is the point. When I started, and like many of my colleagues, the engineering dean 20 something years ago, 25, close to 30 years ago, um, I was of the opinion that engineering, as an example, right, is a very tough major. And we only want the best and the brightest high school graduates to ever come to a college of engineering, right? The ones who have studied AP calculus and AP physics and international baccalaureate and have done incredibly well. And we would accept only like 5% of the applicants, so they are ready. And that was not a unique opinion. I mean, many engineering deans at that time in the 90s and even 80s and early 2000s were of that mind, right? Because engineering is a tough major and STEM in general is tough. Of course, I evolved myself and many of my colleagues did because we discovered if this is what we're thinking, we're never going to get anyone, right? I mean, we're never going to be able to graduate, enough, professionals, in STEM to fill the market need and help move this country forward. So, yes, STEM majors are elite majors, but that doesn't mean they need to be elitist. No, we need to get more people into them. And one exceptionally good way of doing this is exactly what you talked about, integrating higher education with K to 12, trying to get deep down into the school districts, and not only at the high school level, but also even from K to 8 or K to 6. High school level or early concepts like the early middle college, where there will be an integrated curriculum after 8th grade, where in a 4 or a 5 year period, students can end up with an associate's degree plus a high school diploma, making it faster to get a bachelor's degree, financially very conducive and appropriate, and gets them on a path to becoming scientists, engineers, professional architects faster, and also give them a sense of that it's not a problem, being able to get to these majors. Dual enrollment, taking classes while you are in high school, 1 or 2 or 3, 4, as you progress at the 100 and maybe later at the 200 level while you are in high schools, in areas like introduction to engineering or autonomous systems or graphic design or interior design or architecture and so on. Again, makes the transition much easier and provides incredible confidence to these high school students that they can progress and do better afterwards. Even the amazing work that Dr. C.J. Chung is doing with RoboFest, as you mentioned, uh, actually, we have founded RoboFest here at Loras Tech, and it's a worldwide organization where you have tens of thousands of students from 150 countries participate in these competitions locally, then regionally, then they come to the LTU campus at the end of the year to participate from tens, not tens, from actually initially thousands, then hundreds of elementary, middle, and high schools. Again, that's another way to engage students early on, even before they go into eighth, ninth, and secondary education. So I think closing the loop between industry, higher education, and K to 12, and industry realizing that growing talent is not only after they graduate, but it's way before they even go to college. And
Wow.
for higher education to embrace the fact that we should never be elitist, but we should be more inclusive and more impactful by trying to get more and more students to get interested in what we offer as technological and STEM-based major is the way to go to enrich this ecosystem. We're never going to be able to produce enough impactful, set of employees and professionals unless we are encouraging them way before they join our higher educational institutions, not only after they come to us, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. It sounds to me that we got to get out of the cookie cutter solution of dual enrollment or summer camps or what have you. So if we could have integration from freshman high school onwards, so you could take various pathways, and then you come to college, now you get integrated to the job workforce. So really, once you enter ninth grade in high school, not so much, I mean, obviously in Germany and other places have apprenticeship, but the problem I find in the European system is that someone might start, they kind of put you on a path and it's really hard to get out of that path. But in the US, our power has been
Flexibility and off ramps. Yep, absolutely.
there's a lot of off ramps. So as students change, like when you're a freshman versus a senior, you might be, we have the option of redemption and change. That's why the education system is so dynamic. So we could create an integration, and it could be a student in California who has never thought about your institution, but they end up being the right fit into the ultimate job market that they might find themselves in. So it requires a lot of work as far as getting all the alignments.
I think it's all, as you very eloquently and in a very articulate manner described it, actually. It's innovative pathways, right? With lots of off ramps along the way. One pathway could be a pathway by which students are doing a 5-year integrated program right off from middle college that enables them at the age of 18 to actually have a skill that is marketable, that is employable, right? Possibly at some level. And that might enable them to actually work, be productive, with a credential that emphasizes, for example, cybersecurity or xCloud computing or autonomous systems and so on, after getting that first equivalent of an associate's degree and a high school diploma. But at the same time, they would be working, in a hybrid fashion to get to the next upper level credential in 2 more years, which could be, for example, in designing autonomous and robotic systems or cloud computing endeavors, or even being an accountant or, who is very well versed in the usage of AI. Or not even a pathway to a degree, but maybe modules that would be available after that to up their skills in different areas. But the key is this, the key really is what you said, innovative integrated pathways that allows for different type of individuals, different routes. whether that route is work at the age of 19 and 20 and doing something exceptional, or being a designer at the age of 21 and or 22 and doing higher level different type of work, or whether it's becoming an R&D researcher after studying for a few more years. But again, the flexibility, and most importantly, I think, the involvement and integration of industries and companies in every one of these steps is going to be crucial to the success of the model. Again, I do not think realistically that every single US institution is ready for this model or capable of embracing that particular model. I think there will be a period of disruption, and there will be a period in which you are going to probably see lots of mergers and acquisitions and changes in higher education, consolidation of different types of institutions. You will see companies probably getting more involved at a grassroots level, not only in higher education, but more and more in high schools, and helping define these pathways jointly with educational institutions. But it's going to be exciting times. I mean, we will probably, you and I, be retired when this is completely in force. But at least we hopefully can play a part in the beginnings thereof. So,
well, we'll enjoy it. Well, Dr. Sobh, it's been a true pleasure. I think both parents, students, educators could benefit from this podcast. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time, and I hope that your audience will find listening to this informative. Thank you so much.
I have no doubt. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the College Admission TV Presidential Podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll bring you another insightful conversation with a distinguished leader in higher education.